All right, what's up, everybody? Hey, it's your boy Crypto Wolf back again, and gonna make this one real quick. Not gonna drag this out too much, but I had a question from Desmond over here in the comments talking about what I'm looking for when I'm looking for an entry. So let's just get into it. And right now is actually a pretty decent example, except for one thing, and we talked about this the last video too, which is it had me a little bit skeptical all day. And so I did not enter any longs today. Did pull a little short out of there for a little bit. But as far as an entry, down here, Market Cipher B, definitely, seeing this little bullish divergence right there on the VWAP, got us a little bit to the upside, but not much. And money flow was coming down pretty steadily. And then we kind of got this guy going here over, stretched out, from here all the way to down here. Still divergent. But again, money flow just going straight to the floor. So I'm like, all right, when I saw this one, and this is on the 1 hour, by the way. When I saw that one, I'm just, not touching it. I was just too much to the downside on a relatively higher time frame. RSIs were pointed down, just, even though we were seeing this and I'm like, okay, it might do something. It did. It just had this little bit of a pullback to the upside, but still not quite enough. Then we had another one as we're getting down here, and, this little interval is getting shorter. So I'm like, all right, there's a potential that we may be coming up to the bottom, maybe, just maybe. But even at the time that showed up, we were still heading down on the money flow, but we did start getting some divergence on the momentum waves as well. So then after that, I'm like, okay, we're going to have to investigate this one a little further, because that is a pretty steady little uptrend right there. And typically when you see that, it tends to do something. Like even back here, gave us just a little something. And then the fact that we got a little confirmation going right there and potentially rounding up on the money flow. Maybe. I mean, it is, yeah, it's technically, coming up a little bit, but it did there as well as there a tiny bit. So I'm like, it seems preemptive, even though between the VWAP and the momentum divergence, usually a very good sign. But it hasn't been super great so far, even when you come down to a lower time frame just to get a closer look. You can see the same thing kind of played out over these momentum waves. Money flow was coming back up a bit, even though really it was just kind of sideways right here. But we are kind of curving down a little bit. Do have quite a bit of spread right there in the RSIs. And when, we started coming up, we were getting these high DBSI numbers. So I was a little bit skeptical right there off the bat. And then we just started going sideways. And I'm like, until maybe if we see, a higher low, might look at it. But, we did have that same situation back here where we did put in a higher low. But it's just, money flow was so low, it wasn't going to go. I wasn't intending on rhyming that, but it just kind of happened. So the only other thing you can do is come up in the time frames and see what's going on a larger scale here. And as you can see, it still looks super bearish. Money flow just getting ridiculously low. I mean, it's a fairly steep angle right there. We're starting to maybe clip a little bit. We'll see. It's still pointed down pretty good though. And then the RSIs just continue to get closer together as they come down. So I'm still leaning toward the bearish side. So I'm not sold on going in on a long. I mean, you could, if you were super hungry, you could probably try to pull a little scalp out of there. But even over here on the 4 hour, just those little hiccups that we had to the upside. I mean, they don't even show up over here. This one a little bit, but that was where we had that prior bullish son of a bitch. Bullish VWAP divergence. Jeez. But, you know, VWAP is heading up over here. I mean, technically you could say we got a little bit of divergence going right there. And that's really the first and only bullish sign we've had throughout this whole dip. But again, you know, order of operations like we did in the last video, that money flow is it's got it in a stranglehold. Say we come up to the 6 hour. You know, it's coming down, still in the green, kind of got a little quarter pipe going right here where it's just starting to flatten out, going sideways. You know, VWAP still has a little bit to go before getting back to the zero line. You know, momentum just strong to the downside still. RSIs, that's a pretty decent split. So, and on top of that, this guy is getting close to the bottom. So we very well easily could have a little bit more to go to the downside. You know, you look at these DBSI numbers here, 18, 18, 18, 18. I mean, that's about as strong of a continuation as you're going to get right there. So, yeah, not filled with a whole bunch of hope yet. But, you know, again, getting back to the main topic here, looking for entries. If it wasn't for, you know, what we're seeing on the higher time frames and this money flow situation right here, I mean, this would have been a really nice entry. Who knows? It might still be. I'm a bit skeptical, though. You know, because, you know, things tend to bleed up through the time frames. So if we did start seeing like the very, very bottom of a reversal, I mean, it would likely look something like that. But still looking a little rough just yet. You know, and even if it was, even if we did finally, you know, come up, maybe go sideways a little bit and continue up, you know, it might be a little bit before we really find out that that's the case. But, you know, down here kind of hit a support level for a minute. So it could just be a pause. And if we, you know, zoom out, you know, even just this trend line, you know, coming from back here, we still got a ways before we come all the way back to that level. Do have a spider line down here. You know, if I wanted to get frisky with it, another spider line in between these two. Not too worried about that, but you know, the next big support and resistance area, I hesitate to make it this big, but it kind of is. Whoops. So I've got, you know, a lot of resistance right there. I almost just want to call this, yeah, let's call it something like that. It's a little big, but it could be we play off the top and the bottom. Let's try this. Let's see a little something. We'll go all the way back to here. Yeah, pretty close. And you can see over here in the fixed volume, definitely have a little position of strength back here. Carries over back into this little dip as well. Then we got another one coming up around here. And then, of course, we got a big one down here. So if it blew through these other two sections, good chance that we might play off of that trend line, potentially even depending on how long it takes to get there, you know, maybe even a little past it. But yeah, so as far as the trade entries, you know, seeing, and this is just, you know, what I've been doing lately. I've been trying to stick to like one specific strategy. Otherwise, you start FOMOing and flopping and groping and stuff. So I've been trying to stick to that VWAP divergence and, you know, kind of backing it up with the money flow a little bit, which obviously is not the case at the moment. And the RSI is, you know, on the same team as the money flow. So I haven't tried to do anything to the long side. You know, if you're looking the opposite direction, you know, we had a nice one right here that kind of kicked off this entire dip. See this guy right here, this bearish divergence between the VWAPs, even though price was going up. So that right there, that would have been the ticket. That was the big signal that we've had recently. Would have been that bearish divergence, you know, choppy, weak money flow. You know, by the time we saw that it was divergence, this guy, you know, would have been at the top right here of that little money flow bump. But, it, you know, it's small, and we've been having some small ones here and there. This one particularly weak, just looks like took a shark bite right out of it. But even if you try to catch it right as the VWAP crossed the 0 line, let's see where that would have got you. This candle right there. So not bad. When was that? 8 a.m. Shit. Yeah, figures. It's typically like 8:30 to 9 o'clock by the time I get a chance to look at the chart after getting to work, so drop the ball on that one. Man, that would have been the one too. Nice little 8%er on Bitcoin, no less. Says everybody's in the green. We're doing good. We're gravy. Got a little bit more of a pullback on VET. Anybody doing good? Aave? No, looks like Aave topped off though. But yeah, I mean, just pick like one solid signal, like in the case that I'm talking about, you know, kind of going for that VWAP divergence. So that's your big one. That's what you are initially looking for if you're doing this strategy. And then, okay, you found it. What's going on next? You know, is the money flow coming up? There's a confirmation. You know, what's the RSI look like? Is it weak? Is it strong? Is it, you know, trending down? Is it starting to pick up? Depending on what that's doing, could be your second confirmation. If you start seeing bullish divergence showing up on the momentum wave as well, that's 3. Yeah, time to go. And, you know, this one right here would have been an example of, you know, potentially seeing all 3 of those, along with this guy turning around, heading up. In worst case scenario, a little 6 to 6.5%, depending on when you get in, when you get out. Could be getting, you know, pushed by the overall market itself, kind of like we had that, you know, maybe we see one more or something, round the whole thing out to something like that. But regardless, you know, it was a nice little pump, and could be that we put in a higher low, and this guy kind of foretells that, everything else is going to start heading up. Who knows? It's tough to judge the whole market based off of, you know, certain altcoin. Because, you know, oftentimes the altcoins, you get ones here and there that just kind of go their own way. Fuck. Like Anchor. Shit, man, I should have been looking at this one all day. Slacking. Look, as you see this overall curvature just starting to go a little parabolic right there. This is kind of nice down here. Look over here on these momentum waves. Boom. Boom. Just trending up. Nice big money flow right here. Looks like, what do we got here? Yeah. Curving up a little bit, but, you know, doing a little pullback, a little weakening unless it keeps on pushing. Which it could. It's still going, maybe rolling over. It's a bit of a FOMO pump right there. Same as everybody. Yeah, that looks like that's the only thing blasting off at the moment. Looks like some of these showing a little bit more money flow curving up. It could be the bottom, or it could be a temporary bottom. We shall see. But all right, I'm going to leave it at that. Just wanted to, you know, answer that question and actually show it like visually. But this is actually a good example of doing that because, you know, even though you do see one or two or maybe even three of your signals and confirmations, you know, it'll play out to some degree, but, you know, that overall macro trend is your friend, is going to determine just how much it's going to play out. So, all right, you guys have a good one. And if you have any questions, comments, suggestions, criticism, whatever it might be, you know, get at me. Later.